and welcome back to the MyClayCo studio. My name is Carla and today we're going to be talking about how to organise your clay space. There are a few things that you need to know about organising a makerspace, so I'm going to separate this video into 3 separate categories to try and make it really succinct for you to follow along. The first category is your environment. This is really important because it's where you're going to be working the whole time. The second is your storage. There are so many different types of storage, so we're going to go through what is the best in our opinion for clay makers. The third one is what I like to call brain savers. This is anything that helps organise your thoughts and get them out of your head so that you don't have to worry about them anymore. If you're setting up a clay space from scratch, or if you have a clay space already and you just need to reorganise it, we've got all our tips and tricks that we've learned over the years on how to best organise your clay space. So our first category is your environment. Your environment is really important, as I stated before, because it's where you're going to be spending all of your making time. Whether it's the end of your kitchen island bench or it's a desk in a designated room for your crafting, we're going to go through just a couple of things that are, in our opinion, necessities for you to have a really workable environment. The first one is natural light. Natural light is great for your making, photography, filming your pieces for your social content. It's really the all-rounder that you first need to make sure that you have in your setup. It can be really disheartening to be working in a really dark room, especially if you don't have the light to be able to see or you have a lot of artificial light. It's not really great for your eyes or your mood, so it's always best to try and find a source of natural light. It doesn't have to be right up against the natural light, although that is our preference. But if you are, say, on the kitchen island bench and you've got your kitchen window nearby, that's completely fine. It might just be that when you come to photographing or filming any of your pieces, you may need to move to a separate designated space to utilise natural light in that area. When we first started, Tegan had a set of windows in her hallway and we would set up on the ground with our little backdrop and we would film there. Was it the best? No, but it got the job done for what we needed before we could work in a larger space. So you can make it work for you. If you do have the option to put your desk up against a source of natural light, that's going to be prime. So our photography desk is against our largest window so that we can utilize the natural light. And it also means that we can look to see what are the best times of day for us to be doing that and then organize our day around it. So for us, for example, the best time is kind of that lunchtime period between 11 and 3, where we get the best natural light in our window. So if we know that we have to do a bunch of photography or filming that day, we will set up our space, do whatever tasks we need to do in the morning, and then make sure that between that 11 to 3 period, we're utilizing that daylight. The next thing that you want to be thinking about is a power source. So a lot of maker tools, such as Dremel drills, or even some pasta machines that help you roll, do need a power source. Same with your lighting if you're going to be using lights for filming. If you don't have a power source nearby, it can be really difficult to be stop-starting whatever you're doing to move to that power source, especially if your phone or iPad is running out of battery and you need to go and plug it in away from your makerspace. So it's really important to have a power source nearby, or at least an extension cord that is safely run to your station so that you can have access to power. The next really important thing to have near your makerspace is shelving. So shelving houses pretty much everything for your makerspace, so you don't have to have it all laid out on your desk or workspace. So here I've got my tools, I have flat storage for my working surfaces, and I also have some of my clay up the top. I can store books. It's really versatile to store everything that you need to when you're making. So for example, if I need to pull out something for photography, I can grab my camera, I can grab some photography backdrops, pull them onto my work surface, do my photography things I need to, and then put it back in the shelving unit. That resets my makerspace so that I can either do creating or planning whatever it needs to be in that space. The next important piece for your environment is a pegboard. So we obviously have a really large pegboard here in the studio, but if you've got a home makerspace, you only need to have a small one, and it can even be up on the side of your shelving unit. So you're utilizing as much vertical space as you can. The great thing about pegboards is that they're really versatile. You can change out all the bits and pieces on it to either have hanging space or little buckets that you can put smaller items in. So it is a really versatile tool to have, and again, as I said, you're using that vertical space. Vertical space is key in a really small space. So if you've only got a really tiny area to work in, you want to be trying to use as much of that vertical space as possible. The other great thing about pegboards is that they're relatively inexpensive. You can find them at IKEA, at your local hardware store, in many shapes and sizes, and a lot of the pieces are interchangeable with what you can buy in those separate stores or online. The last thing in your environment to make sure that you're keeping organized are your work surfaces. So obviously you'll have your desk or bench space always there and readily available. But those other surfaces, like if you're making with tiles and our flower foam mats, you'll want to have them put away somewhere so that you can then take them out whenever you need to use them and then put them back to reset that space. So for photography backdrops, you want to be storing them away. Same with your tiles, foam mats, whatever it is. Make sure you keep them away. Don't leave them out on your work surface. I know easier said than done, but it is really important to reset that environment so that each time you come back into it, you know that it's nice and clear and ready for you to do whatever you need to achieve in that area. The next category we're going to cover is storage. There are a plethora of storage containers out there, so it can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming to try and figure out what would be the best in your makerspace. I'm going to be going through a few different types of storage containers and really going through the benefits of each variety and how we use them in our makerspace, and hopefully give you some ideas on how you can use them in your makerspace. The first one we have are pot strips. Pot strips are really versatile. They're these really small containers that are completely sealable that can work for a number of different things. I like to personally use them to put all of my liquid clays and glazes. I just make sure that if it's something like bacon bond or a glaze, here I've got satin and gloss, that I just put a little marking on the top of the container to make sure I know what it is. Otherwise, I just can tell underneath, because they're clear, what the color is if I'm looking for a specific color. I also really like that pot strips can be chopped up. So I like to have a really small glaze set. So this is gloss and satin of the Sculpey glazes. It's really handy if I don't need all of my colors out in a whole pot strip. I can just take two and take that wherever I need it. The other good thing with them is that you can put your pigment powders and mica powders in it so that you don't have to keep carting out all those big containers, especially if you buy in bulk. So it's really cost effective to buy in bulk, not so simple when you need to store it in a small space. So this is a really great solution for keeping everything on hand. The last one that I don't think a lot of people do, but if I'm working on, say, doing some modeling and I just want to have some little eye pins out to put in my creations, I like to put them in pot strips just so that I have a few on hand at my maker station and I don't have to pull my whole collection out. Again, I just make sure that I label the top of them so I know that these ones are my silver ones of 14, 20 and 25 mil, and that way I know exactly what I'm going to get when I open them up. The next variety of containers I like to have in my station are these open containers. So open containers can be any kind of like bucket container, or I've got like little jars. We also categorize silicone bowls in them. These containers are great for, as you can see, a lot of our tool storage. So if there's anything that you need to store horizontally, like these dual-tipped paint pens, for example, they're really great laying flat in these containers. The same with tools that have a dual tip. So as you can see, this tool has two different tools, one on each end. So if I was to put that into a container, I wouldn't be able to know what was on this side very easily. So I like to have it in a flat surface container, just so that I can easily make my way through the tools that I need. I've also separated them into, say, paint pens. These are modeling and sculpting type tools, so that I only need to pull one set of tools off of my shelving unit for me to utilize in whatever I'm doing for making. I also really like upward storage for if I've got, say, brushes, or I've also got here powder brushes. I do find that the glass ones are better in my opinion, just because they're clear and it means that I can see what's on the other end. This is really important for, let's say, if I've got a sharps container, I want to have my sharps pointing down. So a lot of the time, craft knives and needle tools have the same kind of looking base. So it's really handy if you have them pointing down. Let's say if you didn't have their protective covers, you can at least look through the jar and you can see what they are. So you don't have to be second guessing when you're pulling things out. Also, most of the time they're free, because if you finish your jar of jam, you can then wash up that jar and use it in your makerspace. The last one I like to have is just some little silicone bowls on the side. These are great for if I just need a little bit of water, if I need to put a couple of eye pins in here, if I'm not using my paint pot strips. It's just really great to have just some little bowls on hand for whatever I need to use. Another great thing with these open storage containers is you can fill them up with water. This means that when I'm doing, say, silk screening, I can have a bath of water here at my maker station, and I can put my silk screen directly into the water to make sure that that paint isn't going to cake on and ruin my silk screen. So super versatile, really handy to have, and they come in all different shapes and sizes, and as I said, you can be creative and find free ways to do these at home. Another storage solution that we really like to have in the studio are these kind of clear drawers. So I've got two different varieties here. I think they just came from Kmart or Bunnings, you know, any kind of hardware store. They tend to have them for little bits and pieces like screws, nuts and bolts. We find them really handy for storing bulk findings. So if you do purchase in bulk, it's really good to have these kinds of drawers, because you can see what's in it, or you can put little labels on the front. You can have it in your shelving unit at all times, and you can just take small amounts of it to put in one of your other smaller storage solutions to have on your working desk. Now these ones here are a little bit larger. They are stackable, so they're really, really helpful for using that vertical storage, because we can put multiple on top of each other. They have these drawers that actually come out, which is super handy, because if you want to take this to your makerspace and use it, it means that the rest of it can live away in your shelving unit and you're not taking up too much desk space. So we like to use this one for our hole cutter collections, so we'll put an entire collection in here. But if you were to have these at home, you could put larger items in it, such as decor cutters. I have even seen people put dividers in, and you could put your clay stored in here. It would also be really good if you purchase multiple blocks of clay at a time and you don't use them all when they're still in their packets. You could stack them in here, and this could be your clay overflow. The next storage container we have is multi-sectional. So you've probably seen these on our YouTube channel or Instagram stories before, where we actually store our clay in multi-sectional boxes. These Montgomery ones from Bunnings, which is, if you're not in Australia, it's our hardware store. They're actually really, really great because they are divided into sections, so we can actually have a whole container for red, orange, yellow, green, blue, you name it. We also use the smaller ones for things like charm storage if we have overflow. These would probably be a really great solution for an at-home clayer. If you did want to store your clay in them, you could have small sections for individual colours so that you're not mixing any of those colours together. There are a few things when storing clay that isn't in plastic in your containers. Some plastics can react with clay, so you just need to make sure that you're getting the right kind of plastic when you're storing that clay. Ginger over at the Blue Bottle Tree has an excellent article on this, and also has, I think, some of the symbols in it that you can look out for to make sure that you're storing your clay in the right containers. I'll pop a link down in our description just so that you can access that article if you did want to have a look. You'll also note that some tools, like our micro circle cutters, already come in one of these multi-sectional containers, and that's just so that you can keep all of your tools nice and separate in whatever sizes you have. So it's really nice to have all of these different multi-sectional containers at the ready so that you can store multiple of the same thing but categorize them within the container itself. One set of storage items that we like to have on our working desk at all times are waste collection and scrap collection. So waste collection, we simply have like a little box that we just put whatever we're working on in that moment, we can chuck it in there. So this has just got some baby wipes from when we were working with red and black and needed to constantly wipe our hands. So this one at least means that while I'm sitting at my maker station, I can be throwing my waste that I'm creating in here, and then at the end of my make, I can just clear that waste box out. So I do also recommend having a bin nearby so that at the end of your making session, whatever you're doing, you can empty this out straight away, and then you could clear it and put it in your shelving unit so that you're resetting the space till next time to bring it out. But yeah, just having something on your desk so that you can dispose of that waste straight away. The other one is scraps. So we found that if we put scraps in a container and put it away into our shelving unit or a storage container, it's out of sight, out of mind. So we really like to have a bowl on our makerspace station so that we can put any scraps that we're using into the bowl and then just cover it after we're done with it. This means that we're far more likely to actually process these scraps, color mix them so that we can put them away in our proper clay storage, because it's front and center. Every time we see it, we're a little bit embarrassed and think, I have to get to that scraps bowl. So this is a project that Tegan will be taking care of tomorrow, just to make sure that we're resetting our clay scraps bowl and making sure that we have all of the clay back where it's supposed to go. The last storage item that I want to cover are folders. Folders are super versatile in whatever you want to store in it, and they are perfect for anything that you need to seal away for protection, such as sticker pages, silk screens, transfers, you name it. So we like to use our maker folder for our silks and transfers just because they're completely sealable pouches. Completely sealable pouches are super important for things like silks if they're going to be around water, or transfer papers that react with water. So anything that you need to make sure doesn't just have dust kept away from it, but if it's anything else, you want to make sure that it's in a completely sealed pouch. Other things though, you can just have, say, our normal sticker folders. They've just got standard slips in it that we've bought from a stationery shop, and that's just for our product stickers. In terms of specialized folders, we, for example, have our color companion. This one's got the little swatch pockets for it. So again, we're just making sure that whatever purpose we need that folder for, that those inside sleeves are doing the job that we require of it. Having multiple different varieties of folders is always handy because, as I said before, you can store them vertically. Vertical storage is your best friend in small spaces. So having multiple folders, all doing a different purpose, is always a great thing to have in your makerspace. So this last category is, in my opinion, one of the most important things because I feel like it's something that a lot of makers tend to neglect, and that's what I like to call brain savers. So a lot of the time when we think organization, especially for makers, we like to think of our space and all of our tools and all of the things that we have that are tangible. But a lot of the time we actually forget that it's really important to organize what's in our head as well and help reduce the mental load. It can be really difficult to be thinking about your personal life, but also thinking about your business or your hobby, depending on what it is that you are making for. So it's just one of those things that helps to take off some of that mental load, making sure that you're writing it down or putting it somewhere so that it doesn't have to be front of mind. You can actually revisit it whenever you need that piece of information. So a few brain savers that I find really useful to have on hand, obviously as a designer here in the studio, is my tablet. So I use an iPad, but it's whatever tablet or digital thing that you like to use. A lot of the time I try to say steer clear of your phone because that can act as a distraction. So I prefer to have my tablet out because if I need to, say, look up a reference color palette that I've created earlier or a mood board, I can have it on here and I can actually, say, take off my social media from this tablet so that I'm actually not getting notified while I'm working. So I can control what's on here more than, say, my phone, because I need to have multiple things on my phone. So really great for having something like a oven alarm. This one I set all the time for when I need to get things out of the oven so I don't have to think about it anymore. And also clearing that mental load of not having your phone near you, but still being able to access all of the benefits of, say, the internet for things like color palettes and reference images. The other one I like to use a lot are notebooks. I prefer a dot grid notebook because I can use it for writing and for drawing in. So as a maker, it's really important for me to be able to sketch, whether it be on my tablet or in a physical book. So I really like to have a notepad at all times. It's also really good to be able to write to-do lists or checklists if you've got a really hectic time of year, like Christmas or end of financial year. It's great just to get all of those items out of your head and onto a page, and you can actually tick them off. The other one that I really like to have is a planner. So this is so I can take things off of my to-do list as well. I can put some things in my planner, like if I have things on a specific day that I need to do, like scheduling a YouTube video or filming a particular type of Instagram content, I can actually have a content planner out. I can write all my ideas for the week, say on a Monday morning. It means that I've got my whole week planned and I know, okay, what do I have to do today? I have to film that so that I can post it later this afternoon. I can also use it for weekly and monthly planning and I can have a mix of business and personal in here, or purely business, completely up to you. If you're a hobbyist, you might just use it as a personal planner. But it is just something really nice to have so that you can make sure that you're achieving everything that you're supposed to achieve and nothing's getting dropped off of that list. The other good thing that we have in these ones are product designing. So if you're not like me and you don't have a dot grid notebook and you prefer just a little scrap piece of paper, it can be really handy to have the product design one out because you can actually also write how much things are going to cost, so work out realistically how long you'll be spending on it and how much money you should be charging for it, everything that you can kind of have as a reference for that product. So if you need to recreate it in future, you don't have to go back into that mental archive and remember what colors and color recipes did I use, how much did I charge. You can just reference it straight from your product description. So that's really helpful. The other thing, as I mentioned with color recipes, is you want to have somewhere where you store them. Whether you just have a box that has all of your little color swatches in it, or if you've got something like our color companion where you have them all swatched away, you just want to make sure that you have your swatches stored in one place and that you have some form of reference to them. So again, I like to use my dot grid notebook, just have a little reference cheat sheet of, okay, this color is named this, so when I go to look it up in my book, I can see the full color recipe. We hope you've enjoyed the video today and that you got something out of it for your makerspace or maker organization in general. If you did like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you think we've forgotten anything, just pop a comment down below and we'll take a look. We'll see you next time.